Jump off that exhausting ham.
Well, this is Monday. Hold on 1 second. The news is still on. You know this drill, right?
Yeah.
What if conforming to the world was exploring the world? What if the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, little girl, turns into how many streets of life?
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, the NBC News and NBC Sports radio station, KCAA, home to the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Podchaser, Tucson, Tiki Live, Rumble, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. Because life is too short to be pissed off all the time. And I'm on a happy 88 mission, 88 million more happy people in the next 8 years. So I have topics and guests to that end. If you missed Layla Ali's knockout interview round 2 as she returned to my studio last week, please go to my YouTube channel that houses all of my 833 shows and more. So I will have you go there. Thank you for the eyeballs rolling in. You know now that you can actually participate in the show because I live stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you free subscribe there, you will get an alert every 8 a.m. Pacific time in the morning that some good news is on your way. And today I am delighted to have in studio Farron Dozier. He's a fellow NBC News Radio KCAA Sunday host. He's 24 years retired E7 U.S. Army veteran and the founder and advocate for WHATZ the Count on sickle cell trait prevention. He's a broadcaster, a speaker on veteran topics and how we can all heal. Please welcome to my studio, Farron Dozier.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. Now, did I say your name correctly?
That's correct.
Farron Dozier?
Yes.
All right. I am going to invite you to have breakfast with me first.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard any of my past shows. Just about 8 months ago, we started doing this little exercise because people were complaining about life post-pandemic or during pandemic. And it's my job to coach people, whether they like it or not, on how to be happier. So one of the things that we do is start with taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. And that is specifically 8 things that you are grateful for in every morning when you wake up. So we're practicing here on the show. I'll do 4, you do 4. And if anyone wants to participate and do their own, please do put it in the chat and I'll put it up on the screen. So I'll start. The only rule, Farron, is that it has to be specific. Cannot say friends and family. Doesn't cut it. Got to be a specific friend or a specific family member. Here we go. I am grateful that I have a gym that I go to in the morning in my building, and then I sweat for the rest 2 hours because my body is happy and crying at the same time.
Yeah.
What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for my grandson for the opportunity to pass on this knowledge and information and make the corrections of some of the mistakes that I made.
Wonderful. I'm grateful for the sun that is shining. There's nothing better than after a rain. Everything looks brighter and more beautiful. I'm grateful for the rain and the sun.
I'm grateful for God waking me up this morning, for this opportunity to take another breath and again to self-reflect and to help others.
I'm grateful that the planets did not crash into each other last night so that I can wake up this morning.
I'm grateful for the money to pay that electric bill so that I could be on the show with you this morning.
I'm grateful that we have technology that allows me not to have to drive all the way to San Bernardino from Long Beach. And I have this virtual studio. This is one of those hashtag COVID silver linings that people are not, unfamiliar with having us virtually online. Oh, wow. Look at this. We've got all kinds of people here. Good morning, Dean Knoll. Do you have a gratitude you'd like to share? She's hailing from, it's either Illinois or Indiana. I don't know why I can't remember. Well, they both start with I, but welcome, welcome. And then Sheila Mack, another fellow KCAA host.
Hey.
So KCAA is partying this morning. Welcome, welcome. We're doing our gratitude sandwich. We just finished with the top of the bun. Now we go to the bottom of the bun, which is, what do you appreciate about yourself, Farron? And the reason why we do this is many people are not really happy, or they're not clear about what they're good at. And it's one of those things. I think I'm ageless, but certainly our generation we didn't grow up, we're told not to blow your own horn. You're told not to, be too loud. And certainly, selfishness and thinking you're all that was not encouraged. And as a result, we don't approve of ourselves. And the downside of that is we have antenna up looking for approval from all the wrong places. And we, who likes me literally now with social media. So I like everyone to think about what they are good at, what they do like about themselves, not in a, full of myself way, but certainly away from I hate myself, which is one of those theme songs that a lot of us, 7 out of 10 of us, have had childhood trauma. I'm one. I'm guessing that you're one, reading your stuff. And as a result of that, we grow up thinking we're not all that. And the truth is, we are all that and more, and that we are one of a kind, wonderful. So this little exercise you do actually before you go to bed, so that you are not thinking about all the things that have gone wrong before you go to bed, which then doesn't allow you to sleep, but you actually celebrate all the things that are good about you. So I'll go ahead and start. Oh, Dee Knowles said she's also grateful for technology. So, that's a nice new picture, Dee Knowles. I appreciate that I have no problem talking. And I'll do two, because this goes hand in hand with that. I'm no longer embarrassed by the fact that I do have the gift of gab, because as an Asian woman, that's not something that you're supposed to be proud of. So the fact that I am comfortable with that now, not saying that I, sometimes I shouldn't speak, and I do. And that's 12% of the time, but 88% of the time, my ability to speak is a good thing. So I appreciate that about myself. And you?
It's good that you brought that up, because I just recently did a lot of work around myself and self-examination, and I uprooted about 38 years of self-loathing. So when you talk about that self and I and the difference from the ego and just having the pure self-love and self-confidence and self-worth, yeah, I appreciate myself for allowing myself to examine myself, to discover that I'm okay with Farron. Like, I'm really happy. I'm really at peace with Farron today. And it took a lot of work. It took a lot of self-courage to look back and see where that stuff was coming from. So definitely.
I'm going to do this. Releasing self-loathing. And that's why, the great thing about having guests, and some of you know who've been a guest of mine, I don't like pre-interviews because I want to keep it fresh. And I also see my show as a way to get to know people. So when I invited Farron on, I purposely, all I want to know is 3 lines about you, and then the rest we're going to get to know on the show. So I'm really pleased to know that there's never an accident. He reached out and said, "How do I get on your show?" Well, as a fellow host, it's an easy in. So I'm delighted to see that we are definitely like-minded and love-hearted. And I wanted to applaud your courage. So you appreciate your courage. You did like 4 right there.
Yeah.
Awareness, courage, self-love, ending self-loathing. So that's awesome. And now I'm going to give Dee Noel a chance. She says that she loves that she's a good listener. And she really is. What? She really is. So I appreciate that. I am caring and other affirming. I think that's my role, is to encourage others as they explore and find how wonderful they are. So there you go. There's our gratitude sandwich for today, Monday, December the 5th, here on my show. I hope that you enjoyed breakfast as much as we did. Yes. And now we get to explore areas of Farron's own learning. He has a show also on Sunday. And I'll let you do that commercial throughout this morning, and so you can double down on my listeners. And but I do. Let's just start with this. Did you know when you were a kid that this is what you were going to be doing?
No clue at all.
I love asking that question. What did you think you were going to be doing?
You know what? Honestly, I was just a child playing and really didn't have an idea of what was going to be next after high school. Playing basketball, maybe. I found my identity early on, playing basketball around the school and at parks and things like that. So probably the basketball was gonna, get me somewhere, I thought.
How tall are you?
6'3".
Okay. Well, you definitely have that part. Yeah. And you played through high school. No, you didn't think about LeBron James being the next.
No, it wasn't that serious.
It wasn't that serious. You just had fun with it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then tell me what happened. I know this is only an hour show, and we will take a break at halfway between, but give me some of the highlights. What would you say 3 major things that happened to you that sort of sent you into this line of work?
So yeah, becoming a broadcaster came out of my transition out of the military, severe depression and anxiety. That identity crisis as a soldier came to an end because of my sickle cell trait exertion collapsing and almost dying. And so huge sports fan prior to that. So we would be at the bar watching all the games. And I noticed that during that depression, I lost interest in a lot of things, and sports was one of them. And so I had a friend say, "Hey, why don't you do something like get your mind occupied?" And so Blog Talk, this is 2009, 2010. So Blog Talk was kind of the platform to use. And so I started my Blog Talk channel with me and a guy out of Boston doing the sports talk. Well, he was doing most of the talking. I was just, just hanging in there. And that really helped me stay alive, because that was a future that I was living to, instead of not just was my life over, but I kind of held on to that sports aspect of life. And when I discovered that the sickle cell trait was actually connected to sports and athletes, I started using my show to interview people with sickle cell trait. So it became a sports and talk show. And I realized that for myself, music marks a place in time, and we all have a soundtrack to our life. And so I used music because a lot of the stuff that I related to was in music. So I put all that together, and it helped me maintain my sanity. And this platform and this microphone just became a passion.
Wonderful. So let's rewind before because I have a soft spot for vets, and Anna Ford came on, and I've had the director of Veterans for Peace. So I absolutely support. I'm not for war, but there is war. And until we get to the place where there's no war, I absolutely honor and support veterans. So let's go back. Why did you go in, and where did you serve, and how did you serve? Give me that little synopsis so that I can, sort of identify, and then make sure you talk about that road that I really am glad and kind of pissed off that it took us this long to understand the mental health issues and opportunities that come when you come back from war. So go ahead.
So my uncle was in the Air Force, and he asked me what was I going to do when I graduated high school. I wasn't sure. So he suggested the reserves. He said, try the reserves because you can go part-time if you like it. You can always transfer to full-time. But if you go full-time first and you don't like it, you're going to be stuck in that 3-4 year career, that contract. So I tried the National Guard first, and I liked it. And I did about 4 years of that and had an opportunity to become active with the National Guard. So I became a full-time staff with the Guard and had a great career as a track vehicle repair, supply sergeant, and a fuel handler truck driver. Became a platoon sergeant, became a readiness NCO, helped soldiers get deployed for the war. I didn't go overseas, but we went out and we trained other soldiers that were going overseas to survive the roadside bombs. If you remember that, they started attacking the mechanics and supplies on the convoys. So we were brought in to help train them that were going overseas to survive and be fit for that duty. So that was my contribution. I wanted to go overseas, but because of my leadership in my unit, unless the entire unit went, I couldn't volunteer because of my position. So other than that, I've been to Germany, Norway, all different bases around the United States, and had a great career. But as I was working on my Master Sergeant rank, I retired as an E7. I was working on my Master Sergeant rank, and that's where I had the incident with the sickle cell trait after the Army physical fitness test.
And what is that exactly? I'm so glad because I've never had a show on this particular medical thing, so I know nothing. So let me know what exactly is that.
So sickle cell trait is an inherited gene. It's it affects the red blood cells, the oxygen. So I'm a sickle cell trait carrier. So I have 40% of my red blood cells are the S gene, and 60% are the normal hemoglobin A gene. And so what they've discovered is that some people with sickle cell trait can have health complications, and there are risk factors, including overexertion during exercise. And so again, I had no idea until my second physical in the military. So I was in 10 years when I was transferring to another state for another position, and the Air Force base that I was connected to tested my blood work for that physical and found my sickle cell trait and gave me no early information. Just make sure you don't have a child, because you can have a baby with sickle cell disease if your partner has the trait as well. And so I already had my daughters. I was done having children. So, in one ear out the other, but I've always had pain in my arm since my mom would tell you 2 years old, but I remember about 5 years old having this pain in my arm. And I'm 52 today, and I still have that same pain.
Interesting. Now, they didn't find it in your first.
No.
That's unusual. You would think that if this is something that's going to impact your medical ability, that they would look for that. Now, I do remember hearing that it is something that hits the Black race more so than other races. Is that true?
So that I could have a conversation for that for the next 20 years.
We only have.
Yeah. Well, we are number one because it actually has a purpose in life. Sickle cell trait combats malaria. So when you look at where malaria was present, of course, so that we are number one. However, today, because we're all blended, we all have different backgrounds. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, Asian, descent. So it's no longer just African American gene, but we are number one because of where malaria was present.
Wow, interesting. Now, so, but you didn't know, your mom didn't know, your dad didn't know, or they knew and they didn't tell you, how did that happen?
I have a cousin with sickle cell disease on my dad's side, but it was never connected. So my dad was the carrier, but never.
But he
Yeah.
never knew.
Yeah,
He never knew.
discussed it.
Wow. So what's the difference between carrying the trait, or what you said, and the disease itself?
So a trait carrier has only one copy of the sickle cell trait. A person, if both parents have that trait and they pass those two traits to the child, then the child has the sickle cell disease or sickle cell anemia. So you have to have both copies of those inherited genes to create.
And there's no cure for this?
There is no universal cure, no.
Okay. And what are the symptoms?
Pain, crisis, wherever blood flows, because those red blood cells mutate into a sickle type shape, become hard and sticky in the veins, in the vessels. So wherever that crisis happens, there's no oxygen getting to that part of the body. So if it's in the hands, the feet, the brain, the eyes, the lungs, the organs, wherever blood flows, they can have a crisis.
And a crisis could be, because I had a blood clot, a DVT.
Sometimes
so it sounds close, sounds like that, because there's no oxygen to that. Wow. Yeah. So why don't more people know about this? I'm ageless, but honestly, I have not come across this. You are the one. So I'm glad. So just for anyone who, and this is, what's number 2? So African Americans number what, or African? Is it just African, not African American?
African descent.
African descent. What's the second?
Hispanic, Latin descent.
Hispanic. Interesting.
They are number 2.
Percentages? Do you have percentages?
About 1 in 36,000 inherit sickle cell disease from the Hispanic community, and African Americans about 1 in 365 inherit the sickle cell disease, and about 1 in 12 African Americans carry the sickle cell trait. Wow,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
So 1 in 12 carry sickle, sickle cell trait.
Yeah, that's about 300 million people globally.
Wow. So 1 in 12 Africans, carry sickle cell trait. And what is it in Latino? Just to give it
about 1 in 36,000 inherit to that.
That's a huge difference. Anything on Asians?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but
that's fine. I'll look it up. But I'm just curious because I am Asian. I know you thought I was Swedish, but I'm not. But wow, that's really interesting. And Dee Knoll says that this is interesting. And she did say that she loved that. I like that too. I'm going to steal it. I might give you credit. Soundtrack of your life.
Yes.
That's great. So that is wow. So, and there's no universal cure.
No universal cure. Yeah.
If you are of African or Latino descent and you're listening to this, find out. Better to know than not to know. Or I'm almost afraid to find out how many medical professionals will have this on their radar. It's that once again that black and brown disparity
that's the challenge
that happens in our country, that somehow things that affect the majority or I want to be nice, the MAGAs is much more known than, let's say, something that affects black and brown, and I know we're working on that, and
yes,
I'm glad
definitely.
we are. I'm glad we are.
We don't let that stop us, for sure.
True, for sure. All right, so let me go back to when you're training people who are going over. Did you ever hear of people that you trained that lost their lives on the other side?
Yes, and what that does for a person like myself is we live with survival guilt. So there's another survival remorse that we deal with because as a trainer, yes, but again, as a soldier, I gave my life to death, right? And so you want to be able to go over and serve in battle with your fellow soldiers. So to not have that opportunity, in one hand, it's my family prayed. I'm sure my mom prayers allowed that to not happen that way. But yet for myself, I still
Mm,
wanted to be able to that kind of miss that contribution to this service as well. So
mhm,
it's something I had to figure out for myself how to balance in my own mindset to be at peace with my career.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, just to be at peace, just to be part of any war effort in either in as a
Right.
survivor or as a participant is just thank God we have movies that are addressing it now. We have mental health professionals addressing it now, looking at the percentage of people incarcerated who have gone through things like that, have not been treated, the homeless population that is part of that population not been treated. We're finally probably like 30, 40 years too late, 50 years too late.
Yeah.
Better late than never, I guess. But talk to me about what the best things to say or do to help veterans who are coming back with untreated depression or unidentified trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and help us understand, you know, dispel for me some of the common BS belief systems that people hold about veterans or soldiers.
So one of the things that we learn as veterans that civilians they don't understand us, right? And that's partially true because being in that mindset of a soldier and with brothers and sisters at arms, it's your brain clicks, your brain transitions over. And so one of the things I've learned for myself is that we all have this view of objectification, and we teach it as when we objectify one another, you're no longer a woman, you're a terrorist. You're Asian, and then I can talk to you and treat you as such. So imagine as a soldier, we go through training, transforming our brains to recognize another human being as a terrorist, and then we can kill them. And then I'm not, that human connection is not there. But one day your brain is going to remember that, oh, that was a person, oh, you're a person. And now you have to live with whatever those experiences that you have. So it's
Mm.
not just that it's a military issue. This is a human being flaw that we all have that we're taught from our environment when we objectify one another. And that disconnection from our humanness is where the issues start to happen. So you could be a Clipper fan and a Laker fan. And when you put that jersey on, I'm going to talk to you like a Laker fan or a Clipper fan because of the jersey, not because of who you are as a person. And so when you are trained and developed to live that kind of life and be that kind of person now, then we turn it on, but then how do you turn that off? And do you really ever get to turn it off? No, you have to then realize and discover for yourself how to make peace with that in your own subconscious mind, because now you have proof, you have evidence, and you've calculated this, for your entire career, but even again, your entire life, because now we're talking about how does our environment, how our culture train us and teach us to develop and grow up in our neighborhoods and in our families. So objectification is not just military wise. This is what I'm saying is a human being condition that unfortunately is a flaw, and it's all described in language because we're all talking. So we're all talking and using conversation in words. And if we really get to the core of that conversation, we can start to transform our relationships to ourselves and one another. And that's why, for me, as a veteran, having to now figure out what's next. And that's another issue that we have, because now I've given my life to death and I lived. So now what? I don't have that. My identity was in that camouflage. It was in that rank. So I lost who Farron was when I became an E5, because when I became Sergeant Farron, it was like, okay, there's pride. There's a lot of stuff that comes with that responsibility. So that identity crisis, again, it's not just military. You look at athletes who play football since 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and when their career is over, if they make it to the pros, what's next for them? So we all have this type of identity crisis. And so to be able to start to teach and share that, that is my ultimate goal now in life, is to share those different perspectives and perceptions that we grew up in that might not be the truth, but it may be true to you, but it may not be true to me. So perception, interpretation, perspective, we have to take consideration the experience of human beings. And I believe we've been so disappointed in ourselves and our parents and our friends and that I don't care how you feel, just do what you're going to do and get it done. And I don't have to try to be connected to you as a person. And so we pointed out as emotional intelligence, we pointed out as mindfulness, like we pointed out in so many different ways, but this stuff has been going on for centuries. And I believe, if we want to make a change in society, that's why the father, son, that family conversation is so important, because that's where it has to start. It has to start with our men, because we are the foundation for those families. So, as a man, when you go to your house, you don't go outside and thank the foundation for holding up the house. Like we don't do that. And so the father is that type of role that you may not get that thankfulness from your family, because you're the one that's supposed to keep that family together, that foundation. So if I'm broken as a child in my relationships as a son to my parents, how am I going to have a healthy relationship in growing up with my friends and my peers? So the core of it for me is then to go back, and what I had to do after I was able to survive that military experience was I also discovered some childhood traumas or silent wounds, because there weren't really traumas. There was just my misperception because of a child. I didn't know what it was to be an adult at 5 years old. At 8 years old, I'm 52, still trying to figure out what it is to be a man and an adult. So that childhood era, that age frame, that brain is still developing, is giving meaning to life. And if the parents don't know that and recognize the behavior in the change of the child, why is he shy? Oh, well, he's shy because he's trying to talk to you and you don't talk back, you don't listen, so I'm gonna stop talking. Like those are the silent things that happen to us as children. And then we grow up pretending like I'm fine, but I'm really wounded. And for me, the self-loathing was avoiding being disappointed, not just in people, but in myself. Right. And
absolutely.
So to live life like that, and then to discover that as an adult, it's like, hold on, we can make these corrections early on in life with our children and families.
Yeah. Wow. That was packed. We could talk about that for a day. And if you've just tuned in and you're wondering who's in my studio, he is a fellow KCAA host. His show is Sunday at 8 p.m., I believe. And his name is Farron Dozier. And he's been talking about his experience both as a veteran and as someone who's realized the flaw in our own thinking that allows us to objectify. And Dinol said, wow, yes, definitely a drop the mic moment, because it really synopsizes some of the difficulties we all continue to have. And it's definitely been steroidized. I make up words. Steroidized by the pandemic and the isolation and the lack of interaction, by technology and that non-face interaction, and the I don't care attitude that people have used as a coping mechanism to, as you say, keep themselves from hurting themselves or criticizing themselves. Wow. So if you've just tuned in, this is Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm going to keep going. Well, you know what? Let me, we'll keep going. When there's a lot to say, I don't go on break, because there's just, I think that we're definitely, this is a good conversation to have.
Thank you.
Because
Thank
a
you.
lot of people don't realize the level of subconscious and conscious habits that go on in our mind that contribute to our own depression.
Yes.
And that I'm not against pharmaceuticals per se, but I do know that for a lot of people it just delays the healing process. And for me, it's so much more important for you, if you're coming back as a veteran, to just re-listen to what Farron just said around it's understandable that you don't feel good in your mind and body when you were trained to go overseas and objectify people as the enemy, kill them, and then the collateral damage, we're not even talking about that. But let's say you do shoot and kill someone that you've objectified as the enemy, but you come back and you realize when you see your family and friends that they are people too, and that there are people who are it's not bad people, it's people doing bad things. And if you are going to go and shoot and kill every single one of them, you're going to be in trouble, because you'll never sleep again. Because then when you wake up and realize that they're human beings like you are, that's a level of trauma that is hitting how many veterans right now that were in active duty. They're not talking about the people like yourself who train them to do that. There's not just survivor guilt, Farron. I think there's survival guilt, and then also leadership guilt is I train these people to do these horrific acts that are now either dead or, homeless, because they can't live with the memory of what they did over there. Ooh, I just got some serious chills. That's the forking reality of what we do to people when we send them to war.
So can I add something to that so people get another perspective?
Of course you can. I'm getting an education here.
We do this same thing with our law enforcement as a community. We do the same thing as people who go and we view doctors and nurses, because you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a police officer. You should know better. You should know. But that police officer is a human being. He's got his own silent wounds. He's got his own issues with his family. Yes, we're not supposed to bring that stuff to work. But again, we objectify one another. So you're a police officer. Why you stop? Like all that stuff it gets in the way of our ability to listen to one another, the human connection, and then just to have a conversation. So when we objectify, but like I share with my sickle cell community, yes, there are doctors and nurses, but again, if you go in and we have, there's a level of responsibility for us as patients as well, because if we objectify them as doctors and nurses, we are looking at them as an other, right? And outside of them being a person first. And so when you talk about how we get to heal our society, our community, our nation, I really believe that is a core principle that we have to go back and reteach from our children, and those adults, but you have to be willing to do the work. And I'm grateful that I was willing to do my own work and go back and see what was going on with myself and own those experiences in the past and embrace them, experience them for what they were. And now I can look and listen to people, because if I was dealing with what I was dealing with, I can only imagine what you're dealing with. Right. And so now it altered a love for people, as the Bible talks about that commandment of loving your neighbor with that same measure that you love yourself. So if I only love myself 50%, I'm probably going to love you with that or less. So how do I get to love myself first and have that self-love, self-esteem, self-worth, right? Instead of having self-preservation, because that's what most of us really deal with in survival mode, is self-preservation and scarcity. So we behave that way.
Absolutely. And Dino will know that you're preaching to the choir. I don't know if you've seen this yet. This is my book, 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are. And I'm not, this is not a commercial, but I wanted just to highlight a really important exercise. This is the core of who I am. And what you're talking about is defining yourself by what you do for people, your roles, right? So I'm a father, I'm an employee, I'm a soldier, I'm a squad leader. And that leads us into defining and objectifying people in their roles, forgetting at the core of who you are qualities, right? I am funny, smart, caring, creative, and judgmental, imperfect, critical. And so that process of changing how you see not just others, but having the conversation with yourself first. Who am I? And what I thought I was going to do at the beginning to introduce you is I say this, I don't have an answering machine, I have a questioning machine. And when you call me, it says, who are you and what do you want? But that question, who are you and what do you want, is the basis of the beginning of really living your fullest and best life, because you release yourself from the roles and responsibilities of who you think you are as you are in relationship to other people. But if I know who I am at the core of who I am, and that's what you're talking about, loving yourself in that imperfect perfectness that you are, then you can begin to have those conversations with other people. But what do we normally do? We let other people define who we are. Do you like me? Do you approve of me? Who do you see me as? How do I impact you? Well, if you can't forking approve of yourself, how the fork do you expect other people to approve of you? And go ahead.
We have to be able to, again, what I learned was I had to look at my theology, my ideology, and my philosophy. And at 40 years old, I had to challenge all three of those, because I realized that my philosophy was corrupted with some misinformation, some bad information that I put into it. Not that what happened, but what I made it mean about myself. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to gauge when you find those things that you believe in as an adult, then you put those stories and you gauge your life up against those principles outside of it that you believe in. Nobody's wrong about how there's no wrong life. It's just people grow up how they grow up, and then they're now peeling off those layers to try to figure out who they are today as a person. And so I had to do that for myself. I had to go back and look at my theology on how I was raised in church versus the religious aspect of it. And then realizing as an adult, it's not about religion, it's about relationship. So that transformed in how I started to look at the biblical principles, my philosophy, my environment taught me, TV, music, all fantasy, all corrupted, not really realistic. So then I had to go back and challenge those views of, okay, what is my philosophy? What do I believe? What are my beliefs? Right. And when I found a philosophy that I believed in, that showed me that, yeah, your human experience is guided by the decisions and the consequences, but that's all past. Is who are you today? So when I realized that, I was like, wow, that's huge. Right. And then the cognitive behavior classes from the VA, those truly helped me, because I learned how I talked and how exaggerated my thoughts were, and saying all or none, and I don't trust women, so my words were so exaggerated that I didn't even realize how I talk and how I describe life. So when you realize how you're describing life with your words, then I had to start questioning, is that really true? Was I really abandoned? Well, no, I wasn't abandoned by my mother. I was a latchkey kid in 1978. So I had to walk home by myself and let myself in the apartment. And it's like, it was 90 minutes. But as an 8-year-old, my relationship to time at 8 years old was like 20. It felt like 20 hours.
Right.
But it was only 90 minutes. So I had to learn about my thoughts, and the cognitive behavior class helped me understand how exaggerated those stories were. And
that's very, that's not a normal thing for a man to be able to admit.
Exactly.
What BS. I have an exercise called the BS. When I work with individuals, I want them to write down the belief systems that they hold with them, and it's not a right or wrong thing, as you said. It is it useful? Is it working for you, or it is not working for you? And most of the time, it may have worked for you in the past, but now, for a lot of kids who grew up with perceived trauma, right? What you believed, like you said, we have a tendency to have coping devices that are like rafts when there was a lot of water around, right? But there's no more water around because you're an adult now. You're not going to be treated that way anymore. And yet we carry this really heavy raft on our back that holds us down. So the work as an adult is to, examine, what size emotional baggage are you carrying from your past? Is it oversized baggage? Is it regular? Is it overweight? Or, everybody has some baggage. That's fine. But personal item size, not even carry on.
So the little ones, like you're talking to, and when I articulated, when I learned about my own baggage, I'm not worth it, I'm not good enough. The I'm nots, those are the things that your subconscious mind is protecting. Like you better not do that because you're not good enough. Why would you want to take that? Why would you want to go over there and do that kind of job? You're not worth it. Why would they? I have my nonprofit, and it's like I battle with that because it's like, who cares? Like you said, people should know about this conversation. In my mind, I'm like, I know they should, but sometimes I think like, well, who cares? I wake up like, nobody cares about this conversation, so why even bother? But then when I realize that there are these 300 million people in this world that are dealing with the sickle cell trait that could be affecting their health, not just having children, but now you talk about the awareness, education, prevention for the carrier status themselves. And then I look at my own life experience and I have to shift my mind like, okay, it's not about you, it's about the message. And so I get to go back and re-deliver that message. And if people aren't interested, I'm okay. But at least I planted that seed because it may not be them, but they may know someone who may be a carrier that they could pass that. So it's all internal. That internal dialogue is so, and three things I'll share with you that for myself was I discovered that there was a decision that I made that I was on my own, that I don't belong. And what was that third one? I don't belong. I'm on my own. And I can't think
Nobody
of
cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, something in that.
Something in that. Yeah, that's what I heard.
When you think about those, when I put those three, it was like, well, no wonder. And those were before I was 16.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the BS that you hold. Those are the rules. That's what your critical mind tells you. Yeah. And it did good when you were young so that you didn't, get run over by a car or, walk into somebody hitting you. I mean, that's the coping mechanism. But those same thoughts now sabotage you. Yeah. And so the work is to identify those voices in your head. I give my critic an actual name so that when I hear her start going, I go, oh, Rose, you're up and at it again. You got to be so exhausted. You need a vacation. Guess what my mom's name is? Rose. And it's not a slam on her. She really did the best that she could. I've internalized all of her stuff and added every single criticism I ever got in my life so that this critic becomes this giant thing. And the only person that can calm and soothe down my critic is balance-centered Dr. Marissa. And I anchor that. I hold my hand to God, who I call my UPS man, universal power source. He delivers every morning when I pray and meditate. And that energy allows me to go, wait a minute, that's not who I am. That's not true. And at the same time, I bake my own cake. Yeah. Criticism and compliments are just the icing on my cake. And so I'm real clear on that. There are days when I, like you, it's like, why am I doing this? Oh my God, it's like 9.5 years. And, I'm still like Energizer Bunny. And sometimes I'm exhausted. But like you, I know this is one of the purposes I have in life is to take something that didn't work well and help others heal from that. You can have a happy life no matter what happens. And because you are doing that too, I am presenting you with, and I don't do this with every guest, everybody knows this, with Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award. So the next time your critic says, why are you doing this? Nobody cares. Nobody's listening. You just go, excuse me, I got an award that not everybody has. So there.
So I remember it's, and so I call my subconscious mind the task force, just so when the task force is, they kept me safe, but today they're not. I appreciate you. So the three things were, there's something wrong here, like here where I'm at, I don't belong, and I'm on my own. And those three decisions that I discovered were a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And so by the time my view of life was that, no wonder my life played out the way it played out. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And there's no wrong in this. That's the other thing. It's like a lot of us who've had childhood trauma or have had any kind of past that was not, Ozzie and Harriet, have this thing called perfectionism. And it's a dis-ease with life that the only way, thanks, Polly, 3 minutes. I knew this was going to go fast. We have this dis-ease that says it's all or nothing, like you mentioned before. We're either all or nothing, and that's BS. That's another belief system that keeps us unhappy. So we're constantly saying, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when. And the truth is we can be happy right now. Right now, I am so forking happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be talking about this. I'm happy to have people listening. And it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It matters that in this moment, I am making the most out of my time and in this thing called life. Final word, Farron. How do they tune into you?
You can go to at Farron Dozier on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio Sunday night at 8 p.m. FarronD.com. You can find all my information there. The Sickle Cell Trade is WDC on SCT.org. All those are connected, so you can find me on either platform. You'll see what I'm up to. And if you want to reach out and be a guest as well, I'm open to hear the soundtrack to your life.
Yeah, hear the soundtrack to your life. I love it. Well, I just hashtag Naxidental. So not accidental.
I saw your dancing because I'm my show is right after Sam, so I saw Sam hangs out with you, so I saw your dance, and I'm like, who is this lady? Let me see who this lady is.
That's why I was going to ask you how that all happened. Yeah. So that's why we'll have to give Sam credit. Which dance did you see? The one where we were actually doing normal dancing, or when he was smacking me on
you was doing your own solo dancing.
I was a
couple of events.
Events. Yeah. I have a tendency to do that. I do love to dance. I love to laugh more than that. And I'm grateful that you came on, and I wish you luck with your show. I wish you luck with the work that you're doing for the sickle cell, and bless you for that. And I just know that we're doing, things in tandem here. And I'm grateful to know that you're in the atmosphere, satelliting with healing and all of that. So bless you for the work that you do. This is what I do at the end of every show. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live from my loving room, wishing you go now and have, tomorrow I have my co-host, Yorona Boster, and we'll be talking about more healing, loss, infertility, and all that kind of good stuff. So tune in again. Now go and have the best day ever.
Thank you.